And you thought that OCG ban list looked really nice, didn't you? Hi, we're here to talk about, well, you know, the 30% of you that have not smashed the living crap out of that subscribe button, smash it so you guys don't miss out more awesome content. So, about that ban list, Super Heavy Samurai and all of its variants have gone completely unchecked here. So this is actually, I was reading a giant post from an OCG player talking about this list, and they brought up the fact that, wow, you know, all the Super Heavy Samurai variants went untouched. I actually didn't think about this when we were talking about this yesterday. The fact that, I mean, if you've looked at OCG list, you've seen how toxic the Super Heavy Samurai engine is. With Electromite, they have an FTK that's viable that really shouldn't be viable. And you got to take a second here to kind of think about that. You know, is an FTK with Super Heavy Samurai scales being viable, is that a good thing? No, I don't think it is. And I can tell you, if OCG players aren't happy with Super Heavy Samurai, you know, in the capacity of all the variants, I mean, okay, yeah, it's cool that Super Heavy Samurai is being meta right now. That's awesome. It's actually cool. But the problem is, you know, to the level that they made those cards, into the level of genericness in combination with everything else, and then we're not cleaning up the problems that we left. I mean, you have to remember on the high ceiling, looking at tier, looking into the format, you couldn't hit every problem. So OCG players are actually kind of upset about that. Next up here is 60 card Earth Monster Grass Piles go completely untouched, and Block Dragon lives. Now, I do feel this one, actually. Block Dragon, I actually figured that the OCG would clean this up, because I don't even, what was it? It was Ishizu, Adamantipator, Grass, Super Heavy Samurai. I can't even tell you the full names. Some of them were like two-liners of how many engines that you could splash together. But because, you know, Grass, Block Dragon's become the piece that's holding this deck together. I figured that the OCG would probably go after Block Dragon and put it to one, but no. The OCG decided that the Earth Box variant, yeah, I mean, they put the last two Ishizu pieces to one, but I don't think that that makes much of a difference fundamentally for the way that the deck functioned. And that's a really big issue right now, is Grass has actually become a very major contender in the OCG, strictly because of how many sub-engines that you have kind of piling in underneath this deck. So that's a pretty major disappointment, I think, for a lot of people, is 60 card Block Dragon. I guess we can just call it Block Dragon Turbo, or the real Earth attribute toolbox. But I've seen some of those piles work, and it is not very fun at all. Next up is the pending Chaos Ruler and Assault Synchro problem. Yes, they did get rid of Bysteals, which did clean up the Bysteel variant here. But the issue with the whole Chaos Ruler thing, and I mentioned this previously, if you've looked at the OCG videos, Chaos Ruler is able to turn into multiple level 10 synchros. Now, you have Big Das Pator, you have Baron, you have Chaos Angel, you have, I believe Ching Ying is another one of the ones that they make. But do you see the problem here? Those are 4 ridiculously powerful monsters. Now, with cutting back on the Bysteel package, that will hurt the Bysteel variant, but you're still missing the point that these decks were so crazy that they were splashing little, very small sprite packages into them because, oh, look, I control level 2 now. Now I can go ahead and special summon this. I can go ahead and search a smashers off my jet. Yeah, that's a problem still. And the fact that the OCG made a lot of these changes on this list to accommodate Chaos Ruler, a lot of people do think that that is particularly crazy. And I do perfectly understand the sentiments for that, because Chaos Ruler is turned into such a big problem card in the OCG. I understand all the issues that are kind of coming with that, but the OCG has proven that they want that to be the difference in between variants. All right, next up here is purely, completely unchecked, as well as the Zeus carrying purely an Exo Sisters. Now, this is kind of interesting. First of all, purely the big Norcat will be entering into the TCG here soon. I believe we're a month away from that variant actually dropping, probably a little bit more than that. I think it's May. But you're going to actually have to deal with a cat that's unaffected by your opponent's effects. Exceed Encore is going to be your huge friend while trying to clean up that pile. But the issue here is purely having access to that, and I guess Zeus being a little bit more of an issue here too. They do mention the fact here that you do have Exo-Sister taking advantage of Zeus. Same thing with purely, but you have to understand the OCG does have Zeus limited to 1. They're not quite... I think the difference between the TCG and the OCG actually is a key here of Zeus, because the TCG has multiple Zeus, and, you know, if a Zeus touches down, we're like, all right, cool, it cleaned up the field, now we can go ahead and go along. But to my understanding, Zeus is way more problematic in the OCG. I believe it's probably the way that they commit to the fields, at least in terms of differences, but I don't foresee the OCG outright banning Zeus anytime soon. Now, purely going unchecked, now that's hilarious. We'll see in 3 months how that one's going to feel, but we'll have to wait and see how the TCG actually synchronizes for that. Next up here is Cardamomize is still at 3 in the OCG. I feel this. So as much as I love Cardamomize, I think that the card is absurdly busted. I don't think that the OCG, honestly, should have to deal with this. Now, at whatever capacity that's really feeding into this, it's mainly Runic that's getting to take advantage of this. I can't think of any other variants of decks, at least in the OCG, that really cares about Cardamomize being at a larger number. And honestly, because of Cardamomize and how generic that the card is, oh, what, you get punished into not being able to do what? Special summons? That's just the easiest slap on the wrist ever. So while generic draw power added in to the OCG at certain points does feel a little bit stronger, I feel like leaving this card at the capacity that it is still crazy. What? I think Master Duel has this thing limited to 1, so kind of following up on things here, you know, with the OCG and Master Duel kind of being more hand in hand with each other here. Cardamomize, I guess, is a little bit smaller on the radar in terms of, you know, potential hits here versus a lot of the other stuff that we've seen. I mean, like we mentioned the super heavy samurai thing at the beginning of this video, which I perfectly understand. I get it. And then next up here is Runic Fountain going to 2 does nothing. Yeah, I agree with that. All right. And limiting skill drain wasn't the right thing to do, as there are other floodgates that you can play. I understand this. So the big thing with skill drain was it's a shutdown card that helps out Runic. Not to say that there weren't other decks abusing it, Labyrinth, but this was very clearly a hit to go after Runic. Now, 2 Runic Fountain, on the other hand, does nothing. You've already seen how many variants actually on our side of the game here with the Naturia version, the Sprite version. How many of them are playing 2 at this point? And you look at the OCG here where their cleanup was, we'll go ahead and semi-limit this. Now, I do think that this is their attempt at putting it on what would be a watch list at this point, where the OCG kind of wants to keep an eye on these and kind of see how they start to do after the potential hits. If things kind of start to slow down, I think they'll be more passive towards this. But once again, back to the floodgate thing. You have way more floodgates available to you. TC Boo Ravelry goes in. You can even dip into some of the crazier ones here for some sort of other potential here, but I do agree that this skill drain, I think, was something that needs to be reversed very honestly. It is gonna be a very, very futuristic problem, in my personal opinion. So overall, the list, I think, is very interesting. I think that there were a lot of garbage hits. I do agree with the original post that I was reading for this. I think that Gold Bulb to 1, it's very clear that they want to synchro meta post-Duelist Nexus. That's why you're seeing a lot of the big changes that you are here. Now, I think that's perfectly fine to push a synchro meta, but at the way that we're doing it, it's going to be interesting. But I guess in other news, we should be happy that all of the tuners that have been gone for so long are finally getting the chance to come back. But a lot of problems here. Block Dragon, one of them. But we'll have to wait and see how this shapes up. It's a different ball game now. So what you guys think, please? Leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.